This episode of the Better Two podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and DM Needom, author of My Days with the Dark Muse, as well as Love is Worth Waiting For. Hi gang, Donna here. Thanks for tuning into the Better Two podcast. Today's guest is Michelle Clarke. She has a book out called Woo Woo for Women in Business. She and I talk about intuition and energy, and she gives us a little tip, that most likely will benefit some of you. And it's all about tapping. And I'm not talking tap dancing, and I'm not talking tapping on your desk. I'm talking about tapping to heal yourself. So check it out. Hi, Michelle. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Where exactly? I hear the accent. You're in Australia, correct? Or New Zealand?
I'm in New Zealand. I'm in the Upper North Island in New Zealand.
Okay. Because you see, for us, there's not a lot of difference in the accent.
No. But there is for us, like we can hear it quite cleanly. But yeah, not a lot for people outside of Australia and New Zealand where you all sound the same.
When I left New Orleans, I got accused of being from New York. I'm like, no, I'm from New Orleans. Well, you sound like you're from New York. No. Because a lot of those movies that portray New Orleans back in the 80s and stuff, they really misconstrued the accent a lot. So, yeah, we didn't sound like this. Oh my gosh, am I blushing? We didn't do that. No, it was more like, whatever.
I do love the American accents, all of them. Like it's beautiful.
My accent's kind of muddled because I've been in Chicago for so long, but I've also lived in Texas. So unless it's like late at night, my New Orleans accent really doesn't creep in unless I'm tired. And then it'll creep in, but yeah. But we didn't come here to talk about accents. So you decided before the pandemic to take and put your business online. Did you kind of feel it was coming that you were going to have to do this, or it was just something that, I don't want to have an in-person thing?
Yeah, I didn't do it because of getting messages that I was going to have to do it, but I was getting messages. Once I put it all online, I did start getting messages about something big coming. And I didn't know exactly what it was, but I was certainly getting messages about something big coming. But no, I moved everything online because I'm such an energy being. Like energy really matters to me. And going out into the world, there's too many energies. I'm much more able to focus my own energy and therefore be of better service to my clients when I'm really centered. And for me, I live on a beautiful farm. Like I literally look out the window and see the harbour and like 20 rolling acres. Like why would I want to go anywhere else?
Yeah. And you're definitely right. If you're around a lot of people, your energy can just be so zapped.
Yeah.
And I think once we become aware of our energy, it affects us more. As a younger person, it's not so pulling.
Yeah. I think you notice at least, and as a younger person, you have more energy, and you're not necessarily treating your body like the clean channel that you do when you get a little bit older, right? So you're not necessarily feeling all of those energies.
Yeah, because I think back to because I was at Live Aid, and when I think back at Live Aid, which was that massive concert, and I'm down in the crowd when Led Zeppelin takes the stage and just the crush, and it's like you wouldn't catch me anywhere near that now. There's no way I would even contemplate on being in that crowd.
And at the time you loved it, I bet.
Oh yeah, at the time. It was something that was a historical event. But now it's just like history or not. So, with the pandemic, which is kind of interesting, is I had an event prior to the pandemic. So like November 2019, and I remember being at this event. It was a psychic event, and I remember being there. And I told my husband, I said, I will never be doing another one of these events. And at the time, I didn't know why. I was just like, it was something that maybe I was just done with doing it. I don't know, but it was like there was this underlying channel that I knew I would never be back at this event again. And I had been doing it for like 3 years, but something just told me, and I haven't.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? The messages that I was getting before the pandemic, I kept saying, something big is coming and we're going to be changing the way we're doing things and these are things you need to do about it. But every time I tried to feel into what it was, I wouldn't get any further clarity, I guess, to not freak us out, right? Like we only ever get shown what we are energetically able to cope with. because they don't want us falling all over the floor not doing anything. Yeah, so it was very interesting. I had no idea that it would be a whole change in the way that the world did everything, but it's so much better for the planet, you know? The water's all cleaned up and the air's all cleaned up, and yeah.
The only thing bad to come out of it is I think I think we're more fear driven now.
Yeah, that is a shame. But are you starting to see the real separation of people like, I've had enough of fear, I'm actually choosing the light? We're starting to see that in New Zealand. It's becoming quite divided and quite clear who's standing in the light and who's standing in fear.
But the only problem, at least here in America, is I think it becomes such a hotbed that people are getting nasty toward each other. And that's where
it hurts.
I know.
Like, oh God, when this is all over, your words will remain.
Yeah.
Don't think about what you're saying.
Right. I mean, if we go back to politics, a couple of years ago, we had a very divisive situation, and I would post memes, and it took a life event for my husband passing for me to realize you posting these memes is not going to change anybody's opinion. And that's the thing. I think Facebook and other platforms have given us this this opportunity to try to sway people to change their minds. And the truth of the matter is, you're not changing anybody's mind. You're just alienating people.
Yeah.
And how do we get past that when we've been given the power of the keyboard?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And use the power of the keyboard to turn up whatever your purpose is in the world. Like, you are never going to change I would never bother. It's same with marketing, right? Like, people that do marketing and they're trying to convince someone that they need the product, I'm like, you're wasting your marketing dollars. Market to the people that already think what you're offering is great, right?
Yeah.
Same with people. Don't try and change their minds, because they might say they're changing their minds and nod their heads, but in the background, they're not changing their minds, because we're all entitled to our own opinions, and the world would be boring if we all had the same one anyway.
Right.
So use your power on the keyboard to spread the light work that you're here to do in the world. Like, if you're here to help people feel more calm, then post calming memes, Right. Don't post, you're all going to like be a mess on the floor and not up level if you're doing certain things. Well, how do you know? Nobody really knows, right? We only know the messages that we're getting for ourselves, and we only know what's right for our own body. Maybe their choices are perfect for their body and your choices are perfect for your body. I personally don't care what anybody does with their body. It's their body. Right.
And I mean, that's something we're having in this country, is a lot of hardcore arguments because of this. I mean, somebody actually said, a media personality said yesterday that, well, if you don't get vaccinated, you should be sent to a state, and that should be a new leper column. And I think that's interesting, because weren't you screaming about people needing to be vaccinated to protect the people that couldn't get the vaccination? Your statement is basically making a blanket statement saying, if you're not vaccinated, everybody goes there. Well, but I thought we were getting vaccinated to protect the people that couldn't get the vaccination.
And it's really fear talking, isn't it? Like, it really is fear. And what I have to say about that is, as a leader, like as a person who people listen to, same for me, like people watch me on the internet, I have a role and a responsibility to be very careful with my words. And I think the leaders that aren't being very careful with their words need to take a look inside their hearts and really feel what's right. It's quite disturbing to me and to a number of people.
This was Howard Stern, so he's a shock jock. So, in a way, this is kind of par for the course. But Gene Simmons of KISS said something very similar. So it's like are they doing it because this is what they intently mean, or are they doing it for clicks, likes, comments, and the news cycle?
They're probably doing it for clicks, likes, and comments. Which is a dark place to be in.
Do what?
It's a dark place to be in.
It is. It's a very dark place to be in. But if And that's the weird thing about the way we operate now, is because everybody wants to say something that's going to be that little nugget that somebody's going to pick up on and blow it up.
I know. And here's the thing. We are so tapped into the likes and the engagement on social media. Let me tell you that likes and engagement on social media have nothing to do with how much money you make or how successful you are. In fact, if you go and look at my social media, you'll find there's hardly any interaction. I'm making plenty of money. Got nothing to do with making money, right? And oftentimes the people that are liking and interacting, they're never going to buy from you. They're only liking and interacting because it's causing an emotion either at the oh my god end or the oh yes end, right? That's what they teach you in sleazy marketing. Create something of that feeling.
Well, the old mantra of marketing was sex sells.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting, if we want to go back to social media for a second. So there was the whole push to free Britney. There was a whole social campaign to free Britney, and it's awesome that they did that and everything. And it was interesting because one of the gossip sites yesterday was posting pictures of her on a beach. And I was pleasantly surprised to hear people coming back at them going, why are you doing this? Leave her alone. Give her some peace.
Great.
I was actually pleasantly surprised because normally, I mean, the reason she got into that position is because they did that to her to begin with. So, and then at the time we had all these people that were just knocking her. Take social media out of it. Human nature tends to love to raise somebody up, especially celebrity. We love to raise them up and then break them down. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, don't they love it? Isn't it yucky? And especially here in New Zealand, tall poppy in New Zealand is absolutely disgusting. Like it really is. Like we don't even enjoy raising people up in New Zealand. We don't even put them on the pedestal to begin with. We like let them on the first two rungs and then we like kick out the it's really, really bad. And I think the reason that people do that is we want to see people succeed. Like you're right, like innately we're all beautiful human beings inside and we want to see people succeed. But what happens is when they get to a certain point, we start to feel that they're above us and it makes us feel unsafe. And so we kick out so that we can bring them back down to a level. So you do, like, especially in the coaching world or in the psychic world or the healing world or any profession, really, you've got to be careful of people thinking that you have the answers to everything, because we don't, right? No one person is the beacon. We're all just raising each other's lights up so that we're rising together. My tagline is together we shall rise, and I mean it. We can't rise one at a time. We have to rise together.
Well, I mean, when I met my first husband, we started dating and everything. The first time I met his parents and his grandparents, they were all like, we prayed to God for you. Excuse me. It's a lovely sentiment. It's nice that they said this. And we prayed to God for you. You were so good with the girls. You're just, this whole plethora of things about how wonderful I was. But I want to unpack that a little bit. Think about this. So you're 22 and you're hearing all of a sudden all this praise. You're for some reason, somebody actually thinks you're wonderful, especially coming from not so great of a mom. At a certain point, though, when do you feel like this is not true, this is false, and I'm headed for a big fall? Because very much like being that celebrity, I was a celebrity in that family. So therefore, you get knocked down, and it's like, I chose to leave the situation eventually, but that's still because then you unpack with, well, I've disappointed everybody. And that's the thing I don't think anybody looks at when a celebrity falls or a person falls, is that person then internalizes everything that they did wrong.
I know. Do you know, and New Zealand has one of the highest suicide rates in the world.
Really?
It's really bad. It really is bad. I've started a whole charity over here for youth and things. We can talk about that later. But just recently in the news, there's this wonderful young New Zealand man, and he's done amazing, and he's a real entrepreneur, and he did all these amazing things. And then he started getting hounded by the press because he sold a business and he didn't make much money out of it. He ended up committing suicide over it. And it's not the first time it's happened here in New Zealand.
Wow.
But because they feel like they've disappointed everyone, and it's about managing those expectations. And I think we outsource our worth to the world instead of going, I'm worthy of every amazingness that life has to offer because I'm choosing to breathe air. We're worthy regardless.
This is true. But I think that kind of starts with school and home. And I know we're in two different continents here. But school still sets you up that you better have good grades. You better be doing this work. You better be excelling. And your parents are fostering that because we want you to be a success. We want you to have a career. So at a certain point, you're already being told that you have these expectations and they're everybody else's expectations. They're not yours. And I over here now, A couple of years ago, one of my friends was talking about her kid was, I think about 12. And they were already talking to the kids in that class about college, which doesn't happen till you're 18 or 19 years old. And when I was 12, I was still being a kid, and I was a cheerleader, and that was all. And I had fun. But now, if you're telling me that you're telling a 12-year-old, well, you better figure out what you want to do, and you better, do you know what you want to do at 12?
Yeah, well, I did, but but the pressure, right?
But
It's ridiculous.
yeah, I mean, you're being taught already that this is the pressure, this is what you have to do, you have to perform. And then on top of it, well, you better get a scholarship because I can't afford to put you through school. So you better make sure you have the good grades. So it's just, when you look at all these pressures, because for a long time in this country, we kind of said, well, if you're going to trade school, nah, sorry, you're a loser.
Mm,
And that's not the case, because a trade is actually a very good thing.
mm. Yeah, I tell you what, you can make way more money out of going to a trade and setting up your own business than what you can do entering into the corporate world. Like it's all just lies, and we need to stop, you know, showing our children that's the way it's done. Like you get told you're a good girl, and then you get the good grades and you get rewarded. And you're right, it's the way society is set up teaches us to constantly go outside for opinions on ourselves when the only person that has to love us is us and whoever we believe in.
Oh, exactly. I had a
Yeah.
boss once that gave me this book, and I've talked about this before on the show. And I'm not knocking the book, not knocking it at all, because I've never read it. I still own it, but I've never read it because I was partially insulted. And he says to me, he goes, I don't know whether I should give you this or not. First inclination, if your instincts are telling you maybe that statement, maybe you shouldn't. So he hands me this book, and it says, Nice girls don't get the corner office.
Right.
And I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'd rather be a nice person and not have the corner office than be cutthroat. And I'm not saying that that is what the book is about, because I've not read it. So anybody that's read it, I'm not insulting you. But that was just my take. And it was just kind of like, I didn't want the corner office, because with that corner office comes more stress than I already had. And I already had too much.
Yeah. But see, it doesn't have to. And that's another society lie. Like you can be a nice girl and have the corner office. That's the book I'd like, right?
Yeah.
Be a nice girl and get the corner office. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But I kind of feel like him giving you that book saying was, darling, you're such a nice person and I want you to succeed. Like he probably wasn't saying what you thought he was.
I get that. But at the time, I mean, this is about 12 years ago or 16 years ago, somewhere in there. But it's like, at the time, it was just kind of like, well, no. I mean, I was already a supervisor. I didn't want to go any further. And I appreciate the thought, but it was just kind of like, yeah, no. But I understand what you're saying too. I mean, that's the thing. It kind of goes along to the line of, if you're meeting somebody for the first time and they're in a bad mood and the meeting goes really badly, your expectation then is set of that person being a downright idiot or some other not so nice term. But the truth is, if you actually took the time to go back and look at what they were going through at the time, they may not have been that idiot.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
and I think the other important thing is not everyone wants the corner office. Like, what is this thing with success? Like, what about if you just want to live a life where you only work 2 days a week and you get to enjoy your family and that's success for you? Like, who's this person making success have to be that you climb the corporate ladder?
well, isn't that the white picket fence here in America? You're supposed to have the house with the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids, which I'm never sure how 2.5 kids work. You got one, I mean, but
about 1.5.
yeah, I mean, that's the illusion. We're supposed to keep up with the Joneses over here. And that's why everything is so competitive. I remember being in school and coming back, and everybody had failed this test, including myself. And I had gotten a high D. And I tell my mom, I'm like, well, I got a high D. And everybody else, most everybody else failed. I don't care about everybody else. I only care about you.
Mm.
Okay, well, the test was that hard that doesn't matter. So you're sitting there always trying to meet everybody's expectations. It's the same thing. And you're a woman, and I'm not sure how it is over there, but at a certain point when you hit 18 to 25 years old, the question of, especially if you're in a relationship or married, is, so when are you going to have kids?
Exactly.
What if I don't want to have kids?
Exactly. There is nothing wrong with not wanting to have kids.
But
Yeah.
there's this, for a long time, there was that stigma of how can you not have kids? I want grandbabies. I want,
Mm.
are you going to raise them?
Exactly. And even just having one, I only had one. She's 18 now and left home, but I only had one. And I even had, I think I had at least three people in different professions. Two of them were nurses, which was interesting, tell me that I was selfish for only having one child. It's like, what business is it of yours?
Wow. Yeah, see, I had two stepkids, but I never had any biological. And part of me, now goes, I wish I did. But I also looked at around for some reason when I was 17, I was thinking, I don't want to bring a kid into this world. If I have to adopt or if I marry somebody that's got kids, that's different. But the world's kind of screwed up.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my take on it. It's just like, but I mean, that is such a when you think about it, that is the way we've been raised, though. It's like everybody else's expectations have been placed upon us. And
Yeah.
how do you navigate and get past that I'm me, I'm okay. It's like the stupid articles you see. If you're over 40, you shouldn't be wearing this. You shouldn't wear your hair this way. Who said?
Exactly. Who made the rules?
Yeah. I mean, there's a clothing store here. I was on hold once, and they're like, for women that are fit and young, and this is young fashion. And I'm thinking, I'm over 50 and I like your clothes. You're really just ticking off a demographic because you want to say it's for young people.
Yeah. It's foolish because who has the money, not the young people?
No, no. So you used to have a corporate job. How soul sucking was that for you?
I've had various corporate jobs, and one of them in particular was extremely soul sucking. I actually got fired for being psychic.
Really? Do
Funny, right?
tell, please, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, it was absolutely fascinating. Like it created probably the biggest core wound in my life, which sounds like over the top, but it really was. Like it was a very underhand, sneaky whole way of doing it, and partly my fault because I used to work there and then I went back as the boss because I wanted to make it a better working environment. Like completely foolish. You cannot lead people that don't want to be led. So, I take full responsibility for my role in it. But yeah, that basically full on gang up of the staff to get rid of me. And I'm pretty strong, so I don't go easily, right? Like I had something in my mind that I wanted to do. Yeah, it was never going to work. And so, yeah, I got fired from that, and then I went on to manage a different college, a beautiful college, one that was like really doing amazing things in the world, and that was awesome. That restored my soul, but still at the same time, it was still a corporate job. Yes, we were still dictated to by the government of what we could do and what we couldn't do, and we had to meet certain expectations, and they make it really hard to make any money and pay your staff. So it was also soul sucking, and in the end, I thought, I can make a bigger impact in the world if I take all the skills that I have, my MBA, my teaching degree, my 25 years in business experience, and apply it to business owners who I can then show how to live an amazing life. So they're bringing all this beautiful energy back into themselves and then spitting that out into the world rather than working in corporate where I can affect, 1% of the people.
Well, and especially being a corporate manager, you, like you said, I mean, being a supervisor, it's like we expect you to do this, this, and this, and this. Okay, well, you have me doing all this busy work. How am I actually supposed to be being a supervisor to these employees?
Exactly. How are you supposed to lead
Yeah,
when you're stuck in the trenches doing the work?
yeah. I remember this one person. He was in somebody else's unit, and she didn't want to do the work, so she put him in my unit so I would fire him. And the whole reason I had to fire him was they're like, you have to find something on him. So I had to go through stacks and stacks of paperwork. Mind you, I had pneumonia at the time. And I found mail that had been documented in the file, but was not in the file from 2 years prior. So during her tenure with this employee, so I wrote up I started writing up the letter about firing him. I went out sick, and she calls me at home and she says, you need to finish this document so we can get rid of him. You couldn't wait till I recovered. So I get better. I go back in, and the employee who I'm going to fire comes in because he sees that I'm still sick and tells me, no job is worth your health. That is the most valuable words some of the most valuable words I've ever heard.
Yeah.
He ended up getting fired. And of course, when he wanted to fight his unemployment, she didn't want to step in. I had to go back and do it. So it's like, I don't understand why she did this, but once again, it was all that power play, and you have no joy there because you're doing your job. She could have done this, but
And
she
you were
didn't.
probably also doing something that went against your values. Like there's no faster way to get sick than go against your values.
Yeah. I mean, I ended
Yeah.
up with pneumonia and then it came back, and it was just like, I think I stayed there in maybe another 4 months, and then I was out of there because it got to a point where I would sit at my desk, and my husband had said that I was close to nervous breakdown because I'd pick him up from the train and I'd still be going on about the job. And that was like at 5 o'clock till we went to bed around 10. I'd still just be going on. I'd play Grand Theft Auto, drive around and shoot things up. I've never played it since. But during that time, I was so stressed out. It was like I was playing that. And I would sit at my desk at times and going, I'm going to quit. I can't handle this. I'm going to quit. So I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown because of the stress of the job.
Mm.
And that's the thing, when you get so disconnected and your corporate job just keeps putting demands on you, what are you going to do? Because then it starts in your dreams. I'm sure you know that. And it just mushrooms.
Yeah, it does. And I think we stay in those corporate jobs because we're afraid to take the leap. Like I coach a lot of women, especially who are in corporate roles, and they want to leap and do something that they're here to do in the world. But the world has taught them that the only way to be safe is to go to college, get a degree, get a job. But it's fake news. I mean, I make 10 times what I made working in corporate, and I was well paid in corporate.
It's all about, we're taught that it's all about security. And there's only two ways you can get security, and that's college and a well paying job, or a man. And that's not necessarily, but you
It's none of
understand.
it's true. I mean, I'm the breadwinner in the family,
Mhm.
like none of it's true. And I really am about burning down the rules because society has fed you a bunch of lies.
It has. And
Yeah.
it goes back to the labels and the rules that we're supposed to be only this way, and we're supposed to act only this way.
Mhm.
So you had also talked, in your little write up, how do you go about making your decisions? I mean, when you decided to leave corporate America, what really was it, something intuitive and instinctively that you were like, okay, I need to do this?
Yeah. So I'm an empath, so I feel everything in my body. So my body tells me when something's not right, and I can ignore it at my own peril and get sick.
Hmm.
And these days, I just listen to it. Like my body was screaming at me. I too was not particularly well, and kept getting cold sores, and I was like, it's just not right. It didn't feel energetically right. And even though I was scared, I knew what was coming if I didn't leave. So that's how I make my decisions fast. If it feels, honestly, the best thing you can do is if you're deciding between two things, shall I stay in my job, put it inside your body and imagine it 5 years forward, I'm still in my job. How does it feel? If your heart is constricting and you feel like you're shriveling up, the answer is leave, right? And then if you shall I start this, amazing business and I need to take 10K out of my retirement fund or whatever to do it and stick it in my body. God, it feels scary, but it feels expansive like a balloon. Then the answer is yes. So constriction is no, expansion is yes.
And that's something that, I was talking to somebody earlier about this. We don't listen to our intuition. We're taught not to listen to it.
Yeah.
It goes back to the fake news, as you were saying. It's the you need to follow these rules, these regulations. This is how you were taught. This is how you need to act. Do not trust your gut.
Yeah. 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 We're literally taught to turn it off. Such
Yeah.
a shame.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And I think it goes even down to the way that we treat children. Like I always treated my daughter like an adult. We had one child on purpose because we wanted to raise her very well. One of us would be at home until she was 6, and I did the first 3 years and then begged my husband to quit his job and stay home because I couldn't do it any longer. But so we shared it in half. But we agreed that we would always treat her like an adult. We would give her all of the information and she would give her the information in a way that she could understand, and she would make her own decisions, and she always has. And my mum always said, you give that child too many decisions, too many options. And I'm like, but that's the real world, Mum. There are options. Like,
mhm.
what am I going to do? Wait till she's 15 and then start giving her options?
Well, let me ask you this. Did you tell her about Santa Claus?
Yes, when she asked me, and that broke my heart because I am Christmas mad. Like we used to make dens for her, and like we did all the things. And she said, "Mum, is Santa Claus true?" And I was like, shall we go and like make some jelly? And she's like, "Mum, I want the truth." And I looked her in the eye and I said, "Do you really want me to tell you the truth? Because you know that I'm not allowed to lie to you." And she's like, "I want the truth." And I said, "Santa Claus not real." She's like, "Mum, why did you tell me?" I was like, Too bad, sugar.
I painted out the story of he was real at one point, but now we carry on tradition. That was my tale of, however, when I found out it wasn't so good and I didn't get my presents because I sneakily found out and told somebody at school and it got back to my mom and it was just not good. I didn't get my Christmas presents for a month after Christmas. So my mom was harsh. She left me a wallet, a Hallmark wallet with a Snoopy wallet that had a little note in it and a penny that said, "Next time, believe Santa." That's some tough love right there. That's some serious tough love. But I was going to say, I had when I worked at a department store here, it was Kmart, and there was this family that came through. It was a boy, a girl, and their parents. And I said, "So are you guys excited about what you're getting for Christmas?" Dad looks at me and says, "They have $100 each to spend on Christmas. We don't lie to our children." I was like, okay. But I mean, it was just, I had never heard that. And I was just taken aback. This was in the 80s. And I was just like, wow, that's some harsh stuff there. But I didn't say anything. I was just like, oh, okay.
I must admit, even when she did believe in Santa, she only ever got one present from Santa, because I didn't like the idea that kids thought poof, stuff could just turn up, you know. Yeah. And I don't even like the whole idea of Halloween, like go and knock on a stranger's door and ask for candy, but every other time that you don't dare speak to a stranger. I'm like, I'm just not down with any of this polarization. Like, stick with what you're saying. And, you know, even though I love all the holidays and I love all the hype around it, I really do think quite deeply about the messages that we're, you know.
I never thought about it that way, but you're exactly right. I mean, yes, stranger danger. You're not supposed to talk to strangers. Hey, and then guess what? We're going to dress up too. So, and I mean, my generation, we had those plastic masks that you really couldn't see out of. So it's like, all right, we're going to go knock on somebody's door. And yeah, you're right. I mean, you don't think about those things.
Yeah, really don't. I do. I think too deeply about everything.
No, that's okay. It's okay, because I mean, it's a valid point. And, you know, at a certain point, when did Christmas become all about consumerism? Because that's basically what it has. You know, oh, we're going to give you a gift. Okay, that's great. But at what point, you know, it becomes so stressful because we have to not only find the perfect gift for everybody, we have to make the perfect meal. We have to do this. We have to do. So how are you really enjoying the holidays? Oh, and wait, January, your credit card statement comes and then.
Yeah.
So the holidays are an interesting thing, I think.
And especially here in New Zealand, because it's summer at Christmas time. So not only do you have Christmas, but you're also planning all the summer holidays. Your kids are off school and you're trying to wrap up everything in your business for end of year. So it's massive. It's very stressful.
I would think, I never, you know, once again, this isn't something we think about. I mean, when I grew up, we didn't really have White Christmas here in Chicago. The jewelry stores actually, I don't know they're doing it now because we haven't had much snow. This is today's the first snowfall we've had. Usually we have some in October, but we haven't. Usually they'll do is, if we have more than 5 inches of snow, you get this free diamond ring or something. Your purchase is right. So they're like gambling. I don't think I've heard that recently, but they used to do this quite often. But they have to have a certain amount of snow on Christmas in order for the free purchase.
Wow.
But I mean, and kids are off of school, but yeah, we have the year end, but it's not so compact. I mean, your guys everything is just tight.
I mean, the whole country grinds to a halt. And even people are like, oh, no, I'll figure out about growing my business after Christmas. I'm like, honey, CEO bosses do not do that. You're growing your business the whole way through. Like, what?
I need to take some time because it's the holidays and, you know, you got to keep going.
It's going to take 2 months off your business. And then you're like, I don't know why my business is not growing.
I have no idea. Do you? So how do you help your clients? I mean, do you just help business owners or do you see individuals and help them as well?
I do. I see individuals and help them as well. I do a lot of energetic work. So when I help a business, I basically use a success triangle. So first of all, the three things that you need to have success and or be happy, right, in your life and in your business is you need the solid structures, the container that allows you to grow, right? If you don't have the right systems and you don't have the right reviews and all the proper foundations for your life or your business, then you can't grow. Because if you do grow, then you just get overwhelmed. So those are the things that we start with. Once that's correct, then we work on taking aligned actions. People are just too busy. They do all the busy work instead of the actions that'll work. They scroll on Facebook and then they do a post on LinkedIn and then they do something else and then do something else. But are they actually writing the book that they want to write? So we're too busy with busy work instead of the big action. So that's the next thing. We turn up their brave and we turn up their visibility. And then once those things are working, then we work on the energetics. And we kind of work on it all at the same time, but it's generally kind of follows that order. Then we work on energetics. And energetics is about being a clear channel for receiving. So it's about busting the mindset that's holding us back. Like a lot of women have a lot of money stories going on. You know, our fathers were the breadwinners and the mums just took what they could get. And like, we've got to bust that bullshit because otherwise we feel bad when we get to a certain income level and we're making more than our dads. We feel bad. We don't want to make our dad bad. So we bust all of those sorts of things. And then it's about space as well. If you don't have space in your life for calmness, like I only work 2 days a week. If you don't have space, how are you going to enjoy your life? How are you going to be an open channel for receiving divine messages so that you know ways to grow your business in divine alignment instead of hustle? But you can't have any of that without a space. So that's what the energetics is about. And that bit up there, the energetics, is where we get the most growth. People are like, oh my God, I got it. Oh my God, I got a $10,000 sale yesterday. Like I literally had someone text message me yesterday, like you'll laugh. I get these messages every single day. What was her message to me? She sent me like 5. She's like, oh my fucking God, I've just had 5 website inquiries today and 1 marketing one. And then she sent me another one. And there's now another one now. Like nice. They're like surprised that it works. Because when you peel the lid off and you really let them reel them out, like you make them brave enough to say what they really want to say and you make them brave enough to call in the money that they really want, like it really starts working and it starts working fast. And it's just so exciting to be able to do it.
Sounds exciting. It sounds very exciting. I am at a point in my life because before I met my husband, I was taking intuition classes. I was a professional reader, but I was still honing my skills and everything. And getting involved with my husband, I still did it somewhat, but I got away from that. So it's, now a year and a half after he's passed, it's like I'm still trying to find my way to connect back into that. And
it's nice.
Yeah, and because he was so much of my space. And unfortunately, nobody ever tells you this, that if you're living with somebody that's terminally ill, there's a certain amount of anxiety and fear that is built in there. And you don't, the first thing my primary care doctor said after he passed was, do you realize the anxiety you've been under? And I'm like, no. And that's the thing about, and I know you understand this, when you're going through something, you don't see that stuff. You don't see that energy because you're living it. It's when people hear some of the things that I've gone on in my life, they're like, I can't believe you made it through that. And it's like, it was life. It was life. What was I going to do? Yeah. So you just, you live through it and you don't unpack it because there you are, you're in that moment and you're going forward. So it took me about, I recognized the anxiety after she told me, but it took me about a year before I realized it was like, wait a second, I'm still living in that fear factor. That fear factor has not completely detached yet.
That's right, because how do you turn it off? When you've lived in it for that long, how do you now turn it off? It's become a natural way of being, right?
Exactly. So it's like, how do you unlearn what you've spent when we got together, he was sick, but he wasn't near death. And the first time he ever got a stent or he had a heart problem, I remember going back home and we were living in a different house. And I remember thinking to myself, and it was a smaller house than this one, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if he passes and this house is huge? And over the years, because of so many scares, you get, I don't want to say complacent or used to it, but you kind of grow accustomed to it. So it's not that moment of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And when he finally did start to succumb, that's when the pressure started to build. And I started writing a character who was losing her husband. So I was already dealing with it before he even passed. but that still doesn't really get to the core of, as you said, in your space of how do you detach from the fear, the anxiety, because I didn't have this anxiety until after my job and after dealing with this. It was like through those years,
Had
that's
a
what
double
stopped.
whammy. You've
Yeah.
had a double whammy. When you need to remove the fear energetically, right? Because you can remove it from your brain, but then
Mhm.
how do you remove that energetic imprint in your body?
Right.
Yeah. Have you tried tapping?
I've heard about it, and you're like the third person to tell me, so I'm
Oh, there
assuming I
you
need to
go.
do
It's a
this.
message for you then, right?
Yeah.
Three times is a message. Tapping is so easy. And people make it really complicated, but it's actually just about using the meridians. So you know what meridians are, right? They're
Yes,
the
I do.
energy channels that go through our body. So they have certain points on the body. And if you tap here, and then on the top of your head, and then on your third eye, then on the top of your eyebrow, side of your eye, below the eye, top lip, bottom lip, collarbone, and under your arm, you are touching every single meridian point ending on your body. And so
Wow.
you start by saying what you're scared about. Oh my God, I'm just so terrified. Death is just so freaking scary. And my life is full of anxiety. And I just don't know how I'm going to cope. So you say all the things that
You need to
you
get
think you
out.
don't believe, but you actually do really deeply believe. And then as you're going through, you just start changing it. But actually, I acknowledge that I've coped with other things before, and I acknowledge that my system is actually able to change. And in fact, I'm probably actually ready to change. And actually, there are some good things in my life. And actually, I feel okay. And, so you just
I
tap
see.
through.
And that's very cool. And I can see the shift already. And I was going to tell you, for the people that don't know, I knew somebody that knew how to work meridians, and I watched them. In fact, they did it on me. They would make you where they could shut your meridian down where your hand would not be able to move.
Yep.
And people don't realize that. And then they could do something else and your hand would be back to normal. But when that was going on, nothing. And it's not a
Exactly. It
parlor
works.
trick. It's true. So I get that meridian work is important. So yeah, you're the third person, and yes, I should do it. And
And what do you mean you're not receiving messages? Like, hello, there's a
oh,
message just right there, right? Like,
well,
we
I
don't know
know
what messages in our head.
I get messages that I get messages, I get signs, I get that all the time. In fact, because I'm working on trying to distort my, just get rid of clutter and get rid of some other things. I had gotten some soup the other day from a Chinese restaurant, and my fortune cookie said your domestic conditions need to be taken care of. I'm like, okay, if that's not a sign, I'm not quite sure what is.
I love it.
So I mean, I totally get what you're saying, and it is a process of getting my mind to a different place, and it's time because my life is not going to be this forever, and I know that. And I think when we go through a trauma, whether it be losing a job, a bad relationship, whatever, we get stuck there sometimes, and the
Yeah.
key is to break that up.
Yep.
So thank you for saying the little tapping lesson, but I appreciate that. But that's not what we came to talk about. But it's
Oh, well, you know what? And there's probably someone listening to this podcast that needed that today as well. So that's just what it's all about, right?
oh, definitely, definitely. So you're the author of Woo Woo for Women in Business.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
I love it. It's my favorite. It's the second book that I wrote, and it's my favorite because it's meshing the woo with the do. You can sit there and meditate all day long. You're not going to get results. You can hustle all day long, and you're not going to get results. It's about really getting that alignment in the triangle. So it has the triangle in there. It explains it, and it explains for you how to tap back into your soul. It explains for you like what structures you need in your day in your business so that you can actually grow. And then it dives into a whole lot of energetics. It talks about 5D energy, it talks about crystals, it talks about colors, it talks about plants, it talks about a whole lot of stuff. So it really does mesh the woo with the do.
Something you said there with mixing the woo and the do, and when you were talking about conflicting messages, we're all talking about hustling and grinding, but in the same breath, everybody's like, well, make sure you're doing some self-care. But you got to have your hustle and your grind on, but get some self-care.
I know. And honestly, that word self-care, like the answer to your exhaustion is not to have a bath or to buy yourself a pretty necklace, for God's sakes. The answer is not self-care. The answer is boundaries. Set some boundaries so that you actually have some energy.
Turn your phone off.
Exactly. Having a bath in rose petals is not going to solve the problem. I
No.
mean, sure, have a bath in rose petals, it's delicious. but also have some boundaries.
Even a guy feeding you grapes while you're in there is not going to change anything. Just, I mean, there's got to be a balance. And something kind of I want to touch on, it was a podcast I did earlier, that the way our English language is, it's like, I am worried. We own those feelings instead of saying, I feel. It's I'm worried. Well, why am I putting that in there? Because then I'm claiming it and I'm affecting the energy of my body by saying this.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I am having some worried feelings right now, and I trust that they will pass. Because it's okay to feel it. And I think what people do is they feel it and they feel it and they feel it and they feel it. But honestly, the feeling, and we confuse feelings with emotions. Emotion is love or afraid or whatever. A feeling is a physical sensation in your body. So when you feel afraid, the emotion of afraid might have the feeling of constriction in your chest. Now, those emotions lead to a feeling, and the feeling is a message. The message is in your body so you can feel it, so you will do something about it. It's not so you continue to have a tight heart, which ends up leading to physical problems and heart problems. It's to feel it, then flush it through your body, move it out, dance or swim in the pool or ride your horse or do whatever you like, and then take some action to resolve whatever you were feeling worried about. But we forget the whole step. It just gets stuck in our body.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like we aren't taught how to release those emotions. We're taught, own your emotions. Well, okay, that's fine, but I need to get rid of it. I don't want to live here. And I don't know about over there, but over here, it's like they're finally coming to say that talk therapy is a better option, which I've had a therapist, I will admit, and I have been in the past. But a lot of people, it's like, oh, here's some pills. Okay, well, you're not learning. I mean, granted, there are some people that need pills, and I'm not saying they don't. But if you're not getting to the root of the problem, those pills are never going to get you to where you need to be. While those pills are good and they can help you, if you're not facing the reality or the problem, then what?
Well, then you're going to be stuck on the pills forever, right? Like sure, take the pills. Like if it's a crisis situation and you think about ending your life, take the goddamn pills so that you don't come off this planet, because we need all of you here,
exactly.
Right? And then do the talk therapy, but move beyond the talk therapy into tapping and body movement. Like, we forget that we're a human being. We've been given these bodies for a reason. We're not just a brain. We have a body. So you need to deal with it on all levels. Like, yes, your mind level, yes, your body level, yes, your health level, all of them.
And I think, speaking from my own personal experience, I think that as you get more mired with thoughts and more mired with stress, it starts taking a physical toll on your body.
Sure does.
And nobody will ever tell you that. Nobody.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how. They would have to then say, well, maybe we should have looked at teaching, if I go back, if they would have taught us how to handle stress when we were younger, I think we wouldn't be wound so tight now.
Yeah. But think about what we do to our kids. Don't cry.
Oh, I know.
Don't you dare cry.
Somebody actually posted something the other day about that, and it resonated, because it's like, we don't allow children to have feelings. We're told, do not cry, do not open your mouth, you need to sit down and be quiet. So and you were saying you raised your daughter as an adult, and I was raised somewhat as an adult, but I was raised as parenting a lot of the times. But the fact of the matter is, a child needs to be able to speak. Otherwise, how are they ever going to learn how to speak?
Exactly.
And so
if you don't take them to process their emotions, then they're not just going to learn it by accident. You actually we need to demonstrate it for them. But the thing is our parents didn't demonstrate it to us because their parents didn't demonstrate it to them, and we're not demonstrating it to our kids. But if you want to break the cycle, then the solution's you.
Exactly. Because I've talked about that many a times, that you have to look at your grandparents, because your grandparents aren't the people that raised your parents. They're somebody different. And here in America, we have the gun issues. And recently, they just actually arrested the parents and charged the parents, because apparently the kid who shot 4 kids, he was 15 years old. Basically, mom said, just don't get caught, in a text message. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Parents condoning murder. This, I mean,
Well, we had another one that was a big shooting over here where there was a riot going on, and this woman drove her son across state lines with a gun, which he's 17 years old, and dropped him off, and he shot two people. And there's been a big dispute because somebody tried to hit him and they say he was fearing for his life, but he's not getting any jail time. Mom did not get charged at all. I'm like, Mom didn't drive him over there to bake a cake with a gun. Mom took him there. She placed him in harm's way. She should be charged. She should. And that's the thing. It's like we don't always, the parents get a pass. Well, the kid did this. Sure, the kid did this, but the parent, where'd the kid get the gun from?
Yeah, that's right. They didn't go and buy it themselves at 17, did they?
No. And then the fact that you're driving them there, I mean, I was actually happy to see that these two other parents got in trouble, because I think that is a precedent. And some people are like, well, why should I be responsible for my kid if my kid does something? Really?
Yeah.
Really?
We made them and shaped them. I agree.
Yeah. I mean, the age of reason is 13. And sometimes I think that kids now are much more advanced than they used to be. I mean, they're more savvy than.
Have you ever met a reasonable 13-year-old?
No. But then I've met some adults that certainly aren't reasonable either. So
There's some 30-year-olds that aren't reasonable. Yeah.
I often go back to the lady in the car accident who I'm like, did you do anything to avoid the accident? I do what I do with my little boy when he gets scared about things. I'm like, and what is that? I put my hands over my eyes and counted to 3.
Wow.
Did you try turning? No, I knew he was going to hit us. So I just, okay. What do you say to that?
You say nothing.
It's one of those things where you keep from laughing and you get out the phone and you're like, really? Who does this? And please, I don't want to be anywhere near you on the road or in your car.
It's fear responses, I suppose, and a lot of people have so much trauma that they're just not like fully functioning on all cylinders,
No. And anybody that's lost people during COVID, I mean, my husband did die during COVID, but not because of COVID. The whole process of grief became strange. I mean, you weren't there. I mean, I got to be at his bedside, but a lot of people didn't get to be by their loved ones' bedsides. And then you didn't really have the funerals. You didn't have the whole grieving process for anybody during that time was just strange.
It would be strange. It would leave some quite big wounds, really.
I mean, like at the hospital, when he died, they're like, okay, you can have one other person come in with you to visit. You can't have anybody else, just one other person. And they have to be signed in. They can't just show up.
Now, is all of that kind of over for you now? Like, is it all back to normal now?
The numbers over here are going up.
Right.
Me personally, and it's not that I'm an anti-vaxxer, I'm going to say that I have some health issues. I have some severe allergies. So I have not been vaccinated. So my life is kind of still in limbo. And when people, like I was saying earlier, make statements about people needing to be put in leper columns, I'm like, do I need a big A or something saying, I can't get the vaccine, I have health concerns? Or it's not that I'm an anti-vaxxer. It's just, if I'm allergic to it, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I think if the vaccine works for people and they can take it, they should. But everybody, mandates are kind of weird.
Mandates we are living in unprecedented times. I almost want to fly forward 200 years and get to read all the case studies and all the stuff.
Yeah.
Like the fallout effects, like the children living in fear, like children here terrified to go back to school.
Really?
Screaming, "Mummy, don't make me go to school." Like, like the repercussions of what's gone on is pretty interesting.
And here's a different caveat, because here in the neighborhood that I live in a smaller town. All the neighborhood kids play together. They've never worn masks around each other. They're all just normal. However, they didn't go to school for quite a long time either. So I think it's a very strange time we're living in. And yeah, there's going to be some weird case studies because I think, I don't know about over there, but over here we have a lot of people acting out. They'll go to a coffee shop, something may not happen, their coffee may not be made right. Next thing you know, they're on YouTube or TikTok.
Mm.
Is that because you didn't learn, you forgot how to socialize?
Or is it because they're just in such fear? They just can't like operate as a rational human being. And what does that say about TikTok? And like, what does it say about us that we want to watch other people losing their shit? Like this poor person is melting down. They're on the precipice of a breakdown, and you're making fun of them. Like, sure, they might be behaving like an asshole, and they'll probably reflect on that later. I wish I didn't do it. But in this point of time, they actually just need some compassion. You know, like they're losing it.
I mean, that's what I don't understand. It's like I don't understand why we. Whoops. I don't understand why people, you know, while I like my cell phone, I don't like the fact that it's such a voyeuristic thing and people want to capture everybody's bad moments and then post it everywhere. Yeah. You don't know what's going on with that person. And while sometimes, yeah, calling the police because your sandwich isn't made right is a pretty stupid thing to do. But it is a lot of fear-based. And you don't know what they've lost and you don't know where their head is. In a way, when you think about it, is it any different than going to watch the gladiators back in the day, you know, for sport? Or watching people destroy themselves?
I've never thought about that. That you're right. It's exactly the same thing. Taking pleasure in destruction.
Yeah. Gross. That just came to me while we were sitting here talking. And I try to avoid TikTok. I really do. Everybody's like, well, you should be on TikTok. And it's just like, to me, TikTok
someone tells me I should do something, I do the exact opposite.
It's just kind of a time suck. I mean, you start scrolling and it's like, okay, and what have I learned and what have I gotten out of it? I try not to get social media. I do it because I have to for my business, but other than that, but you're saying you don't have to do it for your business. Okay. So how do you recommend getting out there if you're not going to use social media?
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still am on social media. I just don't do any of it myself. Like, I connect to my soul in the morning, I download my messages and I get my staff to do it for me. That doesn't mean I have to be on there, right? And even if it was me that had to be on there, I'd open up Facebook Creator Studio and I'd do it from there. So I'm not actually in Facebook or Instagram scrolling. I'm doing it from somewhere else, right? You can schedule it out even. But I do have clients who don't use any social media to grow their business. I mean, have we forgotten, like, email marketing, in-person, you know, online events? Like, we've just forgotten that there are other ways. Like, there was a time when we didn't have social media. We had billboards, we had newspaper, we had magazines, we had word of mouth, we had snail mail. Those things still work. Yeah. They haven't gone away. We're just forgotten about them.
Because everybody wants to be so tech savvy and you want the next big thing. And it's like, well, the next big thing isn't necessarily healthy.
But you imagine receiving a lovely box in the post of me inviting you to an online event. You'd be like, oh my God, I got something in the post.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I remember the feeling of going to your mailbox and getting a gift or a letter or something. It was just like, oh, wow, okay. I used to have pen pals from overseas and getting their letters was just like the most awesome thing in the world.
Okay.
It's not the same as getting an email.
No, see, and I've made you feel something because you opened the box, you've felt something, I've opened your soul, you're going to hear my message really clearly. Whereas when you're on social media and you're zoned out, because that's exactly how it's psychologically designed, you're zoned out, so that's how you can be drowned in there for half an hour and you're like, what? I thought it was only 5 minutes, right? When you're zoned out, are you really reading my message?
No. No, and if you are, and are you really resonating with it, or is it just kind of like, yeah, okay. I mean, that's the one thing. It's like, I'm an author, and the one thing I want to do as a writer is connect emotionally with people. I don't want to just, you read the book and go, okay, whatever. I want you to feel something when you read it. And that's important. And I think when you're looking at text and especially text messages, that doesn't always come across.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody can say something and it can be totally misconstrued.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But somehow when you're writing it fluidly on a piece of paper, the intention comes through.
Same with blogging. Like, you can really, you know, get into the juicy message when you're blogging, but you can't do that in like a 5-sentence post.
No, Twitter. Hi, 120 characters. Okay. Let me try.
Yeah.
So how would you said do you meditate every morning then? Since you said you download your messages, I'm assuming that you meditate and then
Yep. So I'm a very busy, active person. So sitting down and meditating for hours doesn't work for me. I do everything really fast. So I get up, I decide how my day is going to be and what that allows me to do, and I immediately after that I ask what's the message that wants to come through me today, and then I write that down, and I'll get to it later, but I at least write down what the message that needs to come through me today is. Like this morning, it was I've wiped it off my screen now, but it was basically holding space while everything is going at freight train speed, like it is right now. So that's what the message wanted to be. So, and then I got up and I did my exercise and I listened to all my affirmations and I do all my energetic exercises while I'm on my treadmill. Then I get in the sauna and I do some journaling. Like I might decide the next program that I'm birthing, or I might decide what I'm going to do with my staff today. And then I get out, have a shower. The first thing I do is I do my message. So I didn't feel like getting on social media today. So I just jumped on, I did a live for 5 minutes. That's it. That's all I do on social media today, unless my staff wants to post some stuff for me later. And then I did a bit of work with my staff, and I'm going to do this podcast, and after this, I'm going for a swim. That's it.
and then I got to ask you this because I know with my husband he would be very intuitive when it came to being in the shower. For him, water was a
Yes,
very huge conductor. So, are you getting messages a lot when you're either swimming or in the shower? I mean, is that something that you connect with?
completely. And it's the space and it's
Mm-hmm.
oxygen. You need enough oxygen in your body to get the messages, but most of us are slumped over at our computers, right? Like you need proper posture so that you can get the air in, and then you need actual space in your life. So where you're not distracted, so you're not scrolling, you're not watching TV, you're not drinking wine, you're not gossiping. You need space for the
Wait,
messages.
you mean multitasking isn't a good idea?
Say that out loud.
I'm
Multitasking
kidding.
is not a good
I mean, how many
idea.
people? Oh, I'm watching a movie. Yeah, I'm watching a movie and looking at my phone. My husband would say, "Are you even watching it?" And of course, I would be able to answer. And he's like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "I just do." But it's a bad thing. I know it is. I have to say, one of my friends came over for a visit, and we basically put phones down for 5 hours, and it
Yeah,
was the best thing in the world because I hadn't done that in so long.
yeah, it'd be lovely.
So I know you're a busy lady. You're going to go for a swim shortly. So is there anything you would like to add?
Just honestly, that the world really needs what you've got, listener. Like, turn up all of your personality, step into who you're really supposed to be, because the world has changed and we need you doing what you were put on this earth to do. We don't need you in corporate America having the life sucked out of you. We need you stepping up.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for your time, Michelle.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was so much fun.
Michelle was kind of fun. I like her energy. I love her energy. I think she's very upbeat. She had a lot to say and a lot of positive things to say. I think we all have these connections that we don't necessarily realize that we're getting all that information and that we have a lot of stuff that has blocked us. So, yes, I am going to be tapping because, like we both discussed, third time's the charm. This is the third time somebody has approached me and told me that this needs to happen. So, I'm going to do it. You should try it. And then maybe we can have a conversation about it. But I think it's important and it's empowering to see where this goes because we are in a way releasing it. And like I said in the podcast, meridian work, I've seen people, I mean, I've had it done to me where somebody did something to my hand and I could not raise my hand up. It was done. So meridian work does fool with the energy in our bodies. And then when they reversed it, my hand was fine. So if tapping works on the meridians, it should be energetically healing. And as I said, the third time's a charm. So for you guys out there, I hope you got something from the podcast. If you want to check out our book, please do so. All the links are in the show notes. And well, if you want to be on the show or drop a comment, you can do so on YouTube, or you can send me a message directly at Donna at better2podcast.com. That's DAUNA at better2podcast.com. All of our shows are on our own website at www.better2podcast.com. And all of our social links are there as well, plus in the show notes. As always, I thank you for tuning in. We do have a Patreon account or buy me a cup of coffee. So if you want to support the show, please do. And if you want to leave a review, we have it on Apple. You can leave a review or podchaser.com. So thank you as always for tuning in. Thank you for your support. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye. Audio production done by Rich Zai of Third Ear Audio.